to the people. All power to the people. The power of the people. It's the concept. Change starts from the ground up. First of all, I want to thank for being invited today. We're doing a lot all over the country and the world. And on behalf of alumni members, and just so you'll be clear, the Black Panther Party ended in 1982, but the work continues. So we have the Black Panther Party Alumni Legacy Network, and we named it that to let everybody know it was started by original party members, but it will be completed and from generation to generation by people like yourselves. The network is composed just like our collaborative effort so many years ago with people from every walk of life. You know, one of our people is Barbara Lee, was claimed that she was always a Black Panther Party member. Bob Rush also went to Congress. He was in Chicago. Minister of Information when Fred Hampton was murdered. The list goes on.
Yeah,
and we'll talk about our concept of why we believe in local politics and electing people. We didn't too much care about national elections, and I'll get into that as we go. So the first thing I want to talk about, we talk about revolution, educate to liberate, that's where we are. What people thought would be revolution, and the concept that everybody sees when you mention that word, capitalism can use it, but when you mention it, they see a bunch of wild people running around with no direction, no political ideology, no concept of setting up what we call an alternative government or concept where people can live and thrive. So I'm going to give you a little bit of history of the free speech movement and the difference in those folks that started that and where they came from. So I'm going to take you back and tell you a little bit about me. I grew up in the era of civil rights, and we were debating back and forth. We would watch these videos of people being poured hot coffee on them, and people spitting in their faces, and we're like, oh no, we have a right to defend ourselves and stand up. As a matter of fact, we don't want to sit at their lunch counter. We want to own our own. So we grew up in an era of awareness. Our parents would tell us stories. My own father had to leave Orange, Texas in the trunk of a car because he stood up for who he was. We would hear these stories all over the country. Not gonna make an Emmett Till out of me. So, as I grew up and became aware of things around us, certain terms, like the N-word, nigger, you couldn't say that to us. Those were fighting words. It was derogatory. You couldn't change the meaning to satisfy what you wanted to do, so you can sell more records for capitalism and use that term. And at the same time, create an atmosphere of low self-esteem. This is who I am. This is who I'll be. I'll always be a thug. This is what America calls me. So I'm going to take you to that period of what we call the Freedom Riders. Majority of them came from the North. Majority, almost 99% white students, as well as parents. You had black students coming along with them. But when they went into the South, boy, did they realize what was really happening after they faced that suppression. We call it being baptized in the fire.
Okay.
You know the story of the civil rights workers, and we don't really know how many people were murdered in Mississippi, in those swamps. We really don't know. But they stood up to the cause. And just so you know, before they came out, I'm going to give you a little bit of history about the Black Panther symbol. The Black Panther symbol was created at Clark University, then called Clark College. It was first drawn by two sisters, black women, and a white sister. So 3 women drew the original panther. And the symbol was used for voting. At that time, another organization sprung up called SNCC. Stokely Carmichael, as I still call him, Students Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. It was a conglomeration of students, but in particular, with black students, we were calling for economic power. What do we want? Black power. What do we want? Economic power. Of course, they tried to taint that as something sinister and bad. So my first experience, I joined that organization as a West Coast representative. And we used to have a symbol of, I wish I had the original button. Everything of the era, you know, you go on eBay, they're selling that stuff for thousands of dollars. They're even selling pictures of us for unbelievable amounts of money. And right now, there's nothing we can do about it. But you're going on those kinds of things, and what they started doing was they would take the buses, go to the churches, which were a meeting place. They would load up the buses and drive the folks to voting polls. And the voting symbol where black people went had the panther. And where the racists went, it was a white rooster. You know, the symbol of the panther would eat the white rooster. And there was a big billboard that said panther on it, and it would say, pull the lever, vote, and go home. So this movement of getting them on the buses, getting them to vote, and making sure they get home safely so there are no more repercussions. So after that movement, we always say from civil rights in the South, which the recognition of this area, the epicenter of social justice and revolutionary change and human rights. That came right here to Berkeley. Started rolling in school and started the free speech movement concept. But the difference for them, they already had community experience. So when they came, they already saw the connection and the mantra. An attack against one is an attack against all. And at that time, I was a student. I was a high school student. And we were becoming very aware, and it's the same thing that's happening today. We're having high school students who made a documentary on the breakfast program, won an award and going to expose this so they can educate other high school students in Washington, D.C. So we're really pulling for them. And then we had a group of 8th graders want to do a documentary on the Black Panther Party. We're not being taught enough. I said, you sound like us. We realized that we weren't being taught anything of who we were and the connection of how powerful we was. And as students, that was the reason the government came down on us. So for me, joining Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee one day, I was downtown Sacramento. I grew up in Sacramento, California. Senior Cut Day, that was something we designated ourselves. I was down there by myself, standing across the street, watching and seeing Ronald Reagan playing with a group of young people, some scout group that had come from the suburbs. I saw the state police whisk him off. They left those children standing there. So I crossed the street from about here to there where J Street is. And at that time, we saw a group of people walking in the Capitol 100 yards down to the next entrance. So myself and those young people went in behind them. And lo and behold, what we saw was Bobby Seale reading the right to defend ourselves, point number 7 on the 10-point platforming program, because there was a law being passed on the right to do that. I don't know if you guys know, you think police brutality was bad then or now?
Right.
They could shoot you and be back on the streets the next day. There were no police commissions. There was no community outrage. It was just outright murder and suppression. Because during that great move, when folks came from the South for the jobs in the shipyards, Port Chicago, you know about that.
Port Chicago.
The shipyards in San Francisco, the factories, but along with them, they were recruited into the Oakland police, as well as LA and other offices. Come, you want a job, you can take off your hood and bring your same attitude.
Okay.
So it was a double migration that took place at that time. So I didn't join the party at that time. It wasn't until 1968, myself and several other students, we started Sacramento State, and I was running track and field with a couple of friends of mine. You might know them, Tommy Smith and John Carlos. They were at San Jose State. And we were already trying to figure out how we were going to get everybody to boycott and stop sports. Well, you know the rest of the story, and those brothers were blacklisted. When they went to the Olympics, they were immediately removed. So for me, joining the party in 1968 was an opportunity, and our mantra was, we're all in. We're all in what we need to do. As Hashem told you, the movement started on the college campuses. After Bobby Seale and you, we right here in Oakland talked about we want to know more about ourselves. So they created the first African American Studies Department. But wait, it didn't stop there. San Francisco State, UC Berkeley, all across the country. We formed what we call the Third World Student Coalition. Black, white, Asian, Latina, and foreign students said, no matter what, we're going to stick together because we got the same issues in our country that you have here. So what we're going to do is we're going to engage in the community. We're going to get out here and march in the anti-war march. As a matter of fact, it was the students that got the general community involved, like the opportunity. Yesterday, you had workers from the SEAU. You had people marching for the Workers' May Day thing, but they were also in solidarity with the ceasefire and let's stop killing people anywhere. That's the connection. Knowing what's happening with you here on this campus and engaging in the community. One of the best ways to show the rest of the world like we did was service the needs of our people here in our community. This is how it should be done, not dependency on a nation that is not going to do that. So I joined the party, 1969. I was told I had visitors by my coach if we were getting ready for a major race. He said you had to do visitors. I said, well, professors, no FBI. They said you can go to any school in the nation. We'll pay your way as long as you leave the Black Panther Party and stop organizing on the campuses. I didn't realize then, none of us did, that they had already saw our potential because we knew what America was about. And we were saying, how are we going to just tell America and our people in the community and explain to them what the heck is going on? And we did. We studied every concept around the world. We studied what was happening in China. We studied what was happening in Cuba. We studied Marxist-Leninism. And we adopted the concept of dialectical materialism, which everything is always in a constant state of change, which gave us that edge in anything they did. So, I never saw my coach again. I was in, when they rolled out COINTELPRO in 1969, I was in the Sacramento office. We were lucky. We had an office full of 20 children. It was a major Father's Day celebration. We had brought young men who had had a chance to be with their children, and we brought the whole community together. And that's when COINTELPRO was rolled out. And they continued all across the country. And I want you to realize this happened at the time when we rolled out the breakfast program and J. Edgar Hoover, quote unquote, made the statement, the breakfast program is the greatest internal threat to the security of the United States. Wow. I want you all to imagine a major press conference on TV showing our pictures, showing pictures of SDS members, so-called radicals, all showing pictures of brown berets and young lords, and even the United Farm Workers. These are all against America. And you can imagine how it was, what happened with a lot of parents. I want you to realize the pressure that we were under and how we kept on going for 16 years, from 66 to 1982. How were you able to put all these concepts in action? There's a video out where one of the sisters talks about while everyone else was out protesting and throwing rocks and bottles, we were sitting around figuring out how are we going to open up this health clinic to serve prenatal care for women who are losing babies and also dying, and it's the same is happening now. Why is that happening? Why are women of color, women in general, suffering in this way? We realized these concepts a long time ago. And did we sacrifice? Yeah, we did. Some of us came off the campus, so we have to do what we must do. So from there, I did so many things, and I'm going to talk about some other things in a moment. Coming here, I was transferred to Oakland after the office was attacked 6 months later. I was engaged at central headquarters with the national leaders, traveled all over as a high-profile party member. Also helped implement many of the programs and started them all over the country. When the Black Panther Party at its height had 45 chapters and branches, but then we had a charter concept. So you became an NCFF office, National Committee to Combat Fascism, which, by the way, was staffed by our brothers and sisters from other communities, including the white and Jewish community. As a matter of fact, the Lumpen Singing Group One of our members, the band leader, was David Levinson, who went on to be a doctor. He was under the same scrutiny as we were as party members. I'm getting you the idea of the ideology of what we work together as opposed against another ideology, not looking at faces or individuals. Now, I'm going to take this time. I want to go over the 10-point platform. I'm just going to read each one of them. And this has stood the test of time. As a matter of fact, there was an article that said the Democratic Party should adapt this concept of the 10-point platform and program. It was adopted by South Africa. They would sneak Panther papers in. At the height, the Black Panther Party newspaper had a circulation of 300,000 a week. That was the reason why the farm workers boycott grapes and lettuce was so successful. That's why so many other people from the community begin to get elected in responsible positions to control the money locally that would serve the community. So here we go. We want freedom. We want power to determine the destiny of our black and oppressed communities, which is everyone else. We want full employment for all people. We want an end to the robbery by the capitalists of our black and oppressed communities. We want decent housing fit for the shelter of human beings. When you get a chance, go over to 7th and Campbell Street and look at that building that Elaine Brown got built. And when she first got that piece of land in West Oakland, we just took it over. City was going back and forth. She has now embarrassed them because anyone who moves in it, and they are for formerly incarcerated folks and their families. 76 units. Please go by there. State of the art. No one's going to pay more than $300 for the next 15 years. Yeah, the state weighed in on it also. So we want decent housing fit for the shelter of human beings. These are the concepts that we're involved in, not only here, but all around. But you'll never hear these. You're not going to hear it on the news. So that's why the interest of everyone all across this nation in schools and organizations, political figures now want that knowledge in the story. And remember, everything I'm telling you is not conjecture, opinion. It's based upon my personal and our collective experience in the work that we did. So we want decent education for our people that exposes the true nature of the decadent American society. We want education that teaches us our true history and our role in the present day society. And of course, you may know the story of the Oakland Community School, 6118 International Boulevard, and the Learning Center. It was a beacon for the community from preschool all the way up to 6th grade. In 1977, we received a citation for educational excellence. And when we tested against the Oakland Public Schools, the kids tested 3 grades minimum ahead. You heard the phrase, each one teach one, each one reach one. The world is your classroom. Not teaching children what to think, but how to think. And it was very successful. Many of them still went on into various professions, from Hollywood to chefs and medicine and whatever they're doing. Many of them are thankful for that experience, and they also are passing that generational experience on. We want complete free health care for all black and oppressed people. You know, the sickle cell anemia program was something that we created. And it started by one of the sisters at 1048 Peralta Street. If you ever go by there, they have this beautiful Victorian home. Used to be our central headquarters. They're used to people taking pictures, so it's okay. So the idea of when we were there, we looked in the Jet magazine, which is no longer printed, and one of the sisters said, look, sickle cell anemia. There's no testing, there's no cure, and it's hereditary. And then they thought it was just relegated to the African American community. We just lost a young man who's in his 30s, through complications, which they didn't give him the medical help. He had the trait. Young black man. His daughter has the trait, but we found out his wife has the trait, and she's Chinese. So, populations, it needs to be done. It is hereditary, it is horrendous, it is gut-wrenching, and the average person doesn't live until they're like 42 at the most. And so that was one thing that we did. We tested over 500,000 people. So we're now working with Children's Hospital, like we did before, to get this concept out and work with mothers and children like we did at that point before, and recognizing the need for this testing. And that led to community health clinics. The Black Panther Party revolutionized health care. So the idea is these are the things that happened and are still continuing today. And I'll talk about, we still have one of the clinics that is open in Seattle. We have a dental clinic in Oregon. And you can even hear testimony from people like Mary Bassett, the health commissioner of New York, how she cut her teeth in working in the community as a student. And I want to tell you, I don't know if anybody's around, I want to give a shout out to the Junior Care Clinic here that just started in Berkeley. And the Junior Care Clinic, we're working with them, they're engaged in the community, teaching people about high blood pressure, teaching young people about their health. And this is what we did so many days and times before. We want an immediate end to police brutality and murder of black people, other people of color, and all oppressed people inside the United States, which basically pretty much includes everybody in this country, because there's only so much room anybody has to maneuver, especially if they begin to question and say you're not following our constitutional and human rights. We want an immediate end, point number 8, to all wars of aggression. Remember, this was written and revised in 1972. Number 9, we want freedom for all black and oppressed people now held in U.S. federal, state, county, city, and military prisons and jails. We want trials by a jury of peers for all persons charged with so-called crimes under the laws of this country. Thank God for DNA. We have special groups of what is taking place now. How would you feel? Oh, by the way, Fred, you know you're innocent. DNA proved it. Sorry it took 40 years of your life. Have a good life. That is what we're seeing now. We're seeing the injustices that have always taken place. And point number 10, we want land, bread, housing, education, clothing, justice, and peace, and people's control of modern technology. How'd you guys know that in 1972? Well, with the advancements of surveillance and the industrial military complex, which has not changed. We got 900 bases in the world, and all the countries, billionaires are being made. Hey, anybody here wants to make weapons? That's a profession to go into if that's what you want to do, because everybody is buying bombs, and that money should be used for something else. So I wanted to take a minute just to go over that. And now, on the other side, these are the concepts that we created. Now, we were running around telling everybody, we had 20 programs. One day I got a tap on the shoulder because people in this area knew about all the other concepts. So the other school, you know, that Hossein talked about, Stanford University, they took it and they went, oh, we're going to see. Well, all these programs are verified. And I'm just going to go over some of them with you. And this is the work that we did as young people and students and engaged the total community. We had senior advisors. And I'll go over that aspect also, how the whole community was involved in the work. I'll give you some examples of some of the concepts. The 24-hour Child Development Center, which set the concept of how to deal with preschool children and how to start them to reading at 2 and 3 years old, which is all documented because they were tested also. One of the other things, I started the Black Student Alliance, which I was honored to be part of, but it spread to a student alliance. And by the end, we had almost 300 schools all across America. What was the process? And I don't know if there was a connection here with all the other schools across, because then you're looking at not just what we're seeing happen in the world, but what are the issues on campus? What's happening here? How much of the money is being invested? Nobody's able to give us a solid number yet. How is that money being diverted from other needs in America? How can that money be spent for students and our community? So when you talk about taking it away, where are we going to place it? Oh, you become really dangerous at that point in time, as we were told, by being analytical and thinking out the process. Also, we had consumer education classes, employee referral service, the free ambulance program, free breakfast for school children, free busing to prisons, free clothing, free commissary for prisoners, free dental, free employment, and the free clothing program. We actually had factories on Harrison Street in Oakland. And it was a clothing factory and a shoe factory. So when you saw the programs, oh, free clothes. No, they were hand-me-downs. They were brand new. And the process was, we were going to duplicate this all over America. We were going to keep manufacturing plants in our communities where it would not have been taken out of America and the products would have been made by Americans. So we would have had many jobs here. That was something they didn't want to see. Free furniture program, the free health clinics. You know, we revolutionized healthcare. We took healthcare from the hospitals and brought them into the community, which is verified. There were no real health clinics. If you went to the doctor, you didn't have any money. There was no Cover California, no Medicaid. There was none of that. If you didn't have the funds, you're out of luck. And so home remedies, many of you may have grown up on home remedies. Take this for your cold. We don't have money to take you to a doctor's appointment. So the free health clinics came into being. And I'm going to go over just a little bit about those also. The free housing cooperative, free optometry program, community forums, free pest control, free plumbing and maintenance, free shoe program, GED classes, geriatric health center where there's nothing for the seniors, GYN clinic, home safe visits. Those were visits that we would visit the seniors to make sure they were safe. The program was called Seniors Against a Fearful Environment, which Glide Memorial, our good friend Cecil Williams, adapted, and many people across the country. It is now known as paratransit. We knew the value of escorting our seniors during that period of time, and we recruited some of the so-called baddest young men in the community and re-educated them to where they became family and would escort these seniors to everywhere they need to go without any issues or problems. And the legal aid and education, legal clinic workshops, Laney Experimental College Extension Site. We had worked out something with UC Berkeley at the Learning Center. Parents were able to come, do their studies in comfort, bring their kids would get tutored, and then afterwards we would all have dinner. It became a community effort of education, of support, of safety, of love, caring, and working together. The nutrition programs, outreach preventative care, pediatric clinic, Seniors Against a Fearful Environment, the sickle cell research, and the Black Panther newspaper. There was also, they documented, you can research it, UC Berkeley Students Health Program. Oh yeah, we were instrumental on that. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you guys know, there was supposed to have been a monument built honoring the educational work of the Black Panther Party and all these various programs. Well, that was in 2017. It was a project led by Eula Taylor, who was head of the Afghan department. Donald Trump got wind of it. And when he found out that it was not just young people popping up saying they were Black Panthers, it was us, he immediately called the Parks and Recreation. Now, this was a grant that was already that was granted to UC Berkeley. He got on the phone and gave an executive order so it would not be granted. It was not only that it was an honor to the Black Panther Party's work, but because it was being put on UC Berkeley campus. I don't know if you know how they really feel about California and us, but because of our network, you know, we have Panthers Asada in Cuba, we have Panthers Pete and Charlotte O'Neill with a compound in Tanzania. We have former party members all over, and our allies that were with us. So that network all over the world. And I want to mention to you, you might not have known that we had an embassy in Algeria. And at that embassy, we regularly have meetings with Palestinians. We have meetings with people from South Africa. We have meetings with our folks from Central America, South America, as well as Asia, to talk about the commonality of the issues that were confronting all of us and economics that were controlling these countries. Because we talked about how America acts at terms like the mob. So, You're planning on working with that guy over there. Well, you know what it means. You're not going to get your meat delivered for your business. And no one else. It's like being blacklisted in Hollywood. You'll never make another movie if you work with them. So the sanctions are gangster moves by threatening individuals and countries who want to make a difference. And why we're saying this is that what we see is not chaos. This is part of their concept. And I'm going to tell you, before I continue, I get in 2016, when the 50th anniversary of the Black Panther Party was held in the Bay Area and around the world, we had visitors from over 30 countries telling their stories. People didn't know that there was a chapter in India called the Dravidians, Black Panther Party, still print a newspaper. The two chapters, one in Tel Aviv and one in Jerusalem. They didn't know about the folks in Australia and how they formed a Black Panther Party. They didn't know about the Panther movement in England and London and all over the world that was taking place. But they learned. And the thing about it is that we all began to realize that it was a people struggle. We grew into being who we were. We started off black nationalists, powers that be, black power. But then we saw everybody else coming to around us. Right there at Safer Gate, in 1969, 68, Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale would stand there and sell red books to the students for $1 as fundraisers. So they were selling chairman. So there's so much history in this school at this point in time that people really don't know. But what we did, we became analytical on how we looked at everything. And so in 2016, we had this major exhibit at the Oakland Museum. So there's a guy about this tall, had a name tag, taps me on the shoulder. He turns around, he says, Soturo Dad, you are also known as James Miles. So I said, who are you? He said, I used to work with the State Department. So he said, I want to congratulate you, guys deserve the best. He said, you were always a step ahead of us. You understood how we were thinking. You understood the next move that we were going to make. And you were it was like a chess game. That's what made you so dangerous. So the Black Panther Party, we always looked at the vanguard. We started off the Black Panther Party for self-defense. Yeah, black people and people in general in the brown community were being murdered and killed without any abate. But then we looked at the concept of self-defense goes beyond just the ultimate physical self-defense. I'm defending myself for decent housing. I'm defending myself for decent education. I'm defending myself for a decent job, for a decent community, as outlined in the 10-point platform program. We realized if we didn't do it, and we didn't bring everyone to the table. So we went to revolutionary nationalism, where we began to incorporate everybody into the struggle. We said we can't do it isolated. I said we have to come together and make this move together. All of us have issues, anti-war demonstrations, student issues, community issues, poverty. That's when the phrase came up, an attack against one is an attack against all. So that is how we looked at it, that is how we framed it, and that is how we began to march. I don't know, you probably don't know about 1971, the People's Revolutionary Constitutional Convention. We were actually going to rewrite some things that weren't apropos for everybody in America. 15,000 people, representatives from every organization, from women's groups to LGBT, gay liberation movement at that time. And there had been a speech that was given by Dr. Huey P. Newton in New York just before the event. And in that speech, he said that women are being oppressed, they're not being supported. We have to support the women, we have to support their issues because they are the matriarchs, the builders of the family. And about our gay brothers and sisters, they may be the most oppressed of all. So we need to bring everybody in the fold, and we did. Then from there, it went international. In 1971, Henry Kissinger had returned from China, and he had to tell Mr. Nixon, Mr. President, I have not, you can't go to China right now. What? What are you talking about? They want to see the Black Panthers. They requested us. So Dr. Newton went first, amazing reception. All these things I'm telling you, you can Google them now that you know they existed. The second contingency was 20 people. And they taught Dr. Bert Small acupuncture, the cluster form, for PTSD, as well as heroin addiction, which had been dropped off into the community. Also, our relationship with North Korea. They at that time were the most prosperous country around. And we took the concept or the mantra of Juche. Juche simply means use what you got to get what you need, to get to the next step. So therefore, you're not stuck in one way of thinking. You're always ahead of the curve. You're making that move and things like that. Okay, all right, no problem. So essentially, having this opportunity to stand before you, I could never, we actually have a whole course. I think it's a 2-year course right now. It would take 2 to 4 years to really learn all the intricacies and all the work and all the players that were part of the work that we did and are still doing today. So the concept is simply this: for each and everybody who's here, I want you to search yourselves. I want you to really ask yourselves, because when we did what we did, we said, I'm all in. And maybe we didn't realize what was going to come down on us. So, here's Dr. Ned, Brother Churl, also known as James Mott. It's going to, before I end this talk, just give you a little bit of what we call analytical forecasting of what we saw happen before. Be prepared that, you will be under scrutiny, even as a student and not a student. Congratulations, we know this for a fact. Many of you who are involved already have a federal file they're compiling. The tools they have are much greater than what they had back then. Also, remember that they look at you just like they looked at us. You are the most dangerous minds to America. Damn. And after that period, Richard Nixon made a statement in 1975 saying there's an alarming rise of conscious black and brown and progressive people on college campuses. We must do everything we can to stop this from them enrolling and becoming part of this process, because they're contrary to what America is. This is what they say. So, in closing, I just want to make those points to you, and on behalf of Black Panther Party alumni members all over the country and the world, the idea is be the best you can be. Go on in your profession, but always remember, it's about I'm doing this so I can do the right thing. If you're going into medicine, I'm sick and tired of what's happening in the medical arena. If you're going into finance and say the money's being misappropriated, I'm going to make a difference. That's what we need people to get into those areas and make a difference. And remember, it doesn't make any difference. We are in an ideological war, no matter what the faces are. So actually, national elections don't mean anything. It's always about what happens here, your local election. I'd love to see all y'all take over the Berkeley City Council. Yeah. All of them. Take them over. It's like Oakland having a budget of almost $2 billion. I don't know what Berkeley's is. There's enough money to turn it and make it right. Man. So federally, I know you got choices. I don't think nothing's going to change before then. A lot of people not voting nationally, period. So let's focus in on who we are and what we're doing. So I want to tell you, thank you all. On one of our many stops. We love you. Continue to be who you are. Continue to hold that torch. And remember, the power of the people, change starts from the ground up. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.